friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you all of my thoughts and feelings. Let me pick up this giant stack of books on The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. So the main portion of this story includes Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, and Winter. These are the main 4 books of the series. There are several companion things that go along with the series that fans who love it can enjoy and consume as well, which, being a fan, that's exactly what I did. You have the prequel novella, Fairest. We follow Lavanna, who is the main villain of the series. Then you have Stars Above, which is a bind-up of all the different novellas, little short stories, as well as the final epilogue. And there are 2 graphic novels for the series. The first one is Wires and Nerves Volume 1, and the second one I don't own, but it is Volume 2, Gone Rogue. So I always wear the scarf with this shirt and I'm usually fine, but today I'm like profusely sweating and I feel like it's choking me. I feel like I can breathe, guys. Something I think is really important when you're going into the series is realizing how you want to read it, like in what order. You can read it in publication order, you can read it in chronological order, the first 4 books, and then the side stories on their own. There's so many different ways that you can go about reading it. Personally, on this most recent reread, I read it according to how Trina from Between Chapters recommended reading it. After finishing the novella bind-up, thought that some of the stories would have better fit within the timeline of the 4 books. So I watched her video, I'll link it up here on the screen. Really enjoyed it that way. I thought that it was a very seamless, well thought out, well planned chronological timeline. She also took into account spoilers and the way that things are revealed. So whereas this is technically the first thing that you would read chronologically, she did not put it in the first position. You should go definitely watch her video if you want to see why she puts things where she did, but that's how I read it and I really enjoyed it that way and highly recommend it. I also listened to the vast majority of this series on audiobook. The only thing I did not listen to on audiobook was the novella collection and the graphic novel. I had previously read the first 3 books as print books and I liked them, but I much preferred the audiobooks. Marissa Meyer is a fine author. There's nothing inherently wrong with her writing style, but there is something that her narrator, she narrates all of her stuff, Rebecca Soler, brings to her characters, like her interpretation of them. Whatever she envisions in her mind just brings them to life in a way that Marissa Meyer just cannot accomplish on page, in my opinion. I would highly recommend listening to the audiobooks if you have them available to you. Now that I've told you how to read them, because there are so many books, and how I best enjoyed them, let's talk about what are these books actually about. Maybe something I should have covered first, but anyway. I do have a book talk up for the first 3 books in the series. I did not do a book talk for Winter. So in Cinder, we encounter a 16-year-old girl, Cinder, who is a cyborg. She is part human and also part machine. And as a result, she's kind of in an unwanted bracket of society. People very much look down on cyborgs for not being completely human. The woman that she lives with, her stepmom, definitely views her as such. She has 2 stepsisters. Obviously, this is a Cinderella retelling. However, she runs this booth at this farmer's market type plaza. And one day, the Crown Prince of New Beijing comes to her and seeks her help fixing one of his droids, who he claims has some very special, secret, highly classified information. As a result, Cinder becomes very entwined in his life. Also is propelled on this quest for her own self-discovery. Being that the first book is Cinderella retelling, each book then builds on this fairy tale retelling trope. So we have Scarlet, who is Little Red Riding Hood, Cress is Rapunzel, and then Winter follows Snow White. So this series is really good for people who love romance and love to ship characters. It is a bunch of fairy tale retellings, so that makes sense. The plot is a very great balance to the romance. Like, I feel like they're both equally present and equally as important to the series, but if you love to ship people, this is a great series for you. When I first read it, I initially fell hard and fast for Scarlet and Wolf. However, upon my reread, most people prefer Cress and Thorn. Cress and Thorn are fine. No. Cress and Thorn are the most adorable people. I feel like it is the narration of the audiobook that really brought their romance, their chemistry, their bickering, their interactions to life. I do want to talk a little bit about Winter in specific because I feel like when this book first came out, there were a lot of conflicting opinions regarding it. Personally, I think this is one of the best series conclusions I've ever read. I felt like it wrapped everything up so perfectly. Being that it is a bunch of fairy tale retellings, I want happy endings for all these characters. I just felt like this book delivered exactly what I wanted from like a fairy tale ending. A lot of people claimed that this book was too similar, with aspects too similar to The Hunger Games and The Capitol. At the time when this book came out, the Hunger Games movies were coming out, and so I can definitely see how The Capitol presented in the Hunger Games movies mimics this, or vice versa, very heavily. Being that I've now read it so many years removed from that, I don't feel like it's as overtly obvious as it might have been back then. I felt like it made sense for series for the people who live in Artemisia. It makes sense that there are a bunch of these superficial, ridiculous people who are wearing ridiculous fashions, who are doing ridiculously stupid things, and they're all vapid and shallow. It makes sense. I felt like it fit with the story really, really well. I also loved that we had a climactic epic battle scene, and then there was this beautifully long resolution where you got to see all of the characters and their new roles post revolution, and you can see how they are living out their lives, what they're doing, how they're contributing. Like, it's so rare that you see what characters are doing post war. And then she continued giving us more background on what these characters were doing in Stars Above and in Wires and Nerves. You get a lot of time with these characters post-battle, and I just loved all that extra information about what they were doing. I actually loved this book, and I probably will put this on my favorite list of the year because I was incredibly impressed with this final book. Now, really quickly, I want to talk about the side companion novels. Fairest, as I mentioned before, is the prequel following Lavanna from when she's a small child, a toddler, up until she ascends to the throne of Luna. A lot of people do not like this story, but I find Lavanna to be one of the most fascinating villains. There's just so much that's like going on up here in her head, and being in her perspective and like seeing her viewpoints and the rationale behind her decisions, or lack of rationale behind her decisions, was fascinating. I feel like it's a necessary part of the series. It's silly that it makes you sympathize with Lavanna, but it makes her decisions in the series that much more cruel when you know the reasons behind why she's making them, and you know her thought process. You realize, wow, she's something else, and it just adds a new layer to all the different conflicts, and you know like where it's coming from. So I really highly recommend that this is something you read as part of the series. Stars Above has the actual final epilogue to the series in general. If you're gonna read anything out of here, it has to be the last story. It is so important and pertinent, and it's the final epilogue, and you just have to read it. The rest of the stories follow the characters on different journeys. So they could be pre-series, post-series, could be a scene told from a different perspective, they could be character introductions and backstories, so not super necessary aside from the last one. And there is also a really cute Little Mermaid retelling in here as well. It has nothing to do with any of the characters in the series, but if you like The Little Mermaid, it was a really cute retelling. Be warned that if you read the graphic novel series before you read that final novella, these will spoil you for it. Like, chronologically, these come first, but if you want to be surprised for that novella, read these after. Or if you don't care and read them in chronological order like I did, it just kind of takes a bit of the surprise away from that. These are my favorite graphic novels that I've ever read. They are following Aiko post-winter as she is sent on various missions, round up these rogue soldiers. And Aiko is just one of the sassiest, most adorable, amazing characters ever. I love her. She's an android, and she's just the most precious, adorable thing ever. She also meets this boy, and she has this little romance, and it's adorable. It's a whole bunch of commentary on, well, she's an android and he's a human, and he has a lot of really like prejudiced thoughts towards androids. It's just precious. This one has a pretty, I don't know, like simplistic art style. It's all monochromatic. If you love Aiko, definitely have to read these for sure. And that is it. Those are all of my thoughts and feelings on the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. If you've read this series, which I'm sure you've had, it's a little bit older on BookTube, I would love to know what you thought of it. Do we have any of the same opinions or feelings? Have I convinced you to read them yet? Tell me in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!